Hello everyone, my name is H2Acon and today I'm here with the first episode in a new series called Character Case Files. Although not all games are based around real events, like Assassin's Creed, that doesn't mean that the characters' stories are any less impressive or meaningful. This series is going to be a way for me to share with you all the backstories of the great fictional characters in gaming. I'm mostly going to be focusing on characters from the Halo universe for the time being, simply because I'm a huge Halo nerd, but in future I may branch out to covering characters from other franchises, Mass Effect being pretty high up on my list. So I thought, who better to kick off the series with than the face, or rather visor, of Halo? This episode is going to be all about the original hero of Halo, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117. Not much is known of his early life, however we do know that he was born in the year 2511 on the colony world Eridanus II. He lived with his mother and father in Elysium City and attended school at Elysium City Primary Education Facility number 119. It is also known that he had a childhood friend named Parissa, who he once saved from drowning and promised to marry. The two met again decades later during the Battle of Mombasa on Earth in 2552, Parissa then being a lieutenant in command of a platoon. Unable to reveal his identity without comprising the secrecy of the Spartan program, John could not tell her who he was. Whether or not she survived the battle in the Human Covenant War is unknown. In 2517, at the age of 6, John was identified as an ideal mental and physical candidate for the Spartan 2 program. He was studied by Dr. Catherine Halsey, who took particular note of his impressive intellect and extraordinary luck. For the latter, he was even tested by having to predict which side a coin would land on, a test that he passed. That same year, a mere 2 weeks after saving Parissa from drowning in Lake Gusev, John was abducted along with 74 other 6-year-old children from various colony worlds. He was now a member of the Spartan 2 program. John was now known as John 117 since he was 117th on Halsey's list of 150 potential candidates. John and the other Spartan children then went through 8 years of intensive training under Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez, learning history, military strategy, and receiving both physical and weapons training. John quickly proved himself to be one of the best candidates in the program, and Halsey identified him as a future leader of all the Spartans, saying, "He is neither the smartest, nor the fastest, nor the strongest of the Spartans, but he is the bravest, and quite possibly the luckiest. And in my opinion, he is the best." Early on in training, John also made friends with fellow Spartans Kelly 087 and Samuel 034. The three soon became inseparable. One event of note from his training, and indeed one of the few we know about, happened in 2519 when he was 8 years old. The 75 Spartan candidates were dropped into a snowy forested area on the colony world Reach, and told to find their way to a Pelican dropship for evac. They were also told that the last person to arrive would be left behind. John dismissed the instruction as unacceptable and led the other Spartans in a plan to overpower the UNSC Marines on the Pelican and ensure the safe extraction of all 75 candidates. Despite the fact that they were only armed with rocks, the 75 8-year-olds were able to take out the armed Marines and successfully pull off John's plan. Chief Mendez was most displeased about John disobeying orders and hospitalizing several of his men. However, both he and Halsey recognized John's initiative and leadership skills. He was promoted to squad leader, taking command of Blue Team, a team initially comprised of himself, Kelly and Samuel, though in later years other Spartans were added in. He also became established as the leader of the entire Spartan group. In 2525, at the age of 14, John and the other Spartans went through physical augmentations, a series of high-risk operations designed to make the Spartans bigger, stronger, and better at their job. 30 of the 75 candidates were killed by the extreme physical and mental stress of the process. Another 12 were disabled for life. The 33 that survived, however, became the most effective super soldiers that humanity had ever seen, Spartan 2s. Fresh from the augmentations, John was challenged in the boxing ring by 4 ODSTs. As he had yet to discover his own strength, he killed 2 and crippled the others before he could even notice what was happening. Some claim that the incident was orchestrated to test the Spartans' augmentations. However, it is definitely true that the incident served to create resentment of the Spartans throughout the Marine Corps, above and beyond the usual inter-service rivalry. John's first deployment happened later that year, when he led Blue Team on a mission to capture an insurrectionist leader known as Robert Watts in the asteroid belt of the Eridanus system, the same system of John's home planet Eridanus II. The Spartans were able to sedate Watts and bring him in for interrogation by the Office of Naval Intelligence. However, John was shot in the side during the mission. Fortunately, he quickly recovered and was awarded a Purple Heart. The Spartan IIs proved themselves extremely effective in countering the growing threat of insurrectionism in the outer colony worlds. However, the UNSC's war against the various rebel groups was put on hold following the arrival of a far greater threat. The fall of Harvest in 2525, following first contact with the Covenant Empire, set the entire human military on red alert. Blue Team, now equipped with Mark IV Mjolnir power armor, fought their first battle against the Covenant on the 27th of November 2525, when the Covenant light cruiser Unrelenting attacked the UNSC forces based on the far-flung world of Chi Ceti IV. Blue Team was able to infiltrate the Covenant vessel with the help of the UNSC heavy frigate Commonwealth. John, Kelly, and Samuel were able to fight their way through the Kigyar crew and place explosives by the vessel's reactor, which they detonated once clear of the ship. Unfortunately, Samuel's suit had been ruptured in the fighting and was no longer vacuum sealed. This meant that he was unable to evacuate the ship alongside Kelly and John via the hull breach that they had come in through, and was forced to stay behind on the ship. Samuel is presumed to have been killed by the explosion that destroyed the Unrelenting, and his death weighed heavily on John, who had regarded him as a brother. This served to strengthen John's firm belief in never leaving a man behind. Another early deployment of John's was the Battle of Cercinius IV in 2526. John, along with Kelly and Frederick 104, the new addition to Blue Team, was able to evacuate survivors from the Covenant attack on the Corbulo Academy of Military Science. One of those he saved was Cadet Thomas Lasky, who he later met again at the First Battle of Requiem in 2557 during the events of Halo 4. For the next few decades, John and the other Spartan IIs fought countless battles against the Covenant, often single-handedly turning the tide of battle in the UNSC's favour. John personally served in over 200 campaigns during these years, including the liberation of Harvest from 2526 to 2531, the Battle of Jericho 7 in 2535, and the Battle of Sigma Ortanis 4 in 2552. It is worth taking note of the fact that his abduction as a child may well have saved his life. His home planet Eridanus II was glassed by the Covenant in 2530, and if he had stayed, it is likely that he would have been one of those killed. In 2552, John went back to Reach with the other remaining Spartan IIs to receive some upgrades. Not only did he get outfitted with a Mark V Mjolnir suit, but he was also introduced to the AI Cortana for the first time. The two were partnered and showed incredible teamwork, passing an almost suicidal test of the new Mark V armor. Whilst he and the other Spartan IIs were stationed there, Reach was attacked by the largest Covenant armada ever deployed against mankind. The fall of Reach saw more Spartan II deaths than any other campaign, before or after. Facing overwhelming odds, the UNSC elected to retreat, and so John boarded the UNSC cruiser Pillar of Autumn, which fled Reach by making a slip-space jump to coordinates provided by Cortana. This now brings us up to the events of Halo Combat Evolved and the other Halo games. Since John's story during this period is essentially just the storyline of Halos 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm not going to waste time by going over things that I assume almost everyone watching this already knows. There is, however, one gap between the games that I'd like to address. How John went from piloting a longsword fighter out of the wreckage of Installation 04 at the end of Halo Combat Evolved, to being back on Earth for the start of Halo 2 mere weeks later. Well, once John escaped the explosion of Alpha Halo, he then went back to Reach to look for any surviving Spartans, and was able to find several of his team, as well as Dr. Halsey and Vice Admiral Danforth Whitcomb. On their way back to Earth, they discovered the unyielding Hierophant in the Tau Ceti system. The Uneven Elephant, as it was affectionately dubbed by Sergeant Avery Johnson, was an enormous Covenant repair station that was, at the time, readying a fleet of over 500 Covenant ships to attack Earth, the location of which the Covenant had finally discovered. John, alongside fellow Spartans Frederick 104, Linda 058, William 043, and Grace 093, was able to sabotage the station's generators and caused its twin fusion reactor to explode. Although Grace was killed by Jiral Hane-wielding brute shots, the mission was a success as the massive explosion annihilated 486 Covenant ships. John, the remaining Spartans, Johnson and Cortana, then made their way back to Earth. This only served to delay the attack on Earth, however, as another Covenant fleet was quickly assembled and began an assault on Earth on the 20th of October 2552. This is where Halo 2 resumes the story. Fast forward through a lot of fighting against the Covenant, the Flood, and the Prometheans, and we arrive at the end of Halo 4 in the year 2557. Now without Cortana, John is assumed to be going through extensive debriefing by the Office of Naval Intelligence. They have a lot to talk about given that he has been fighting constantly since the beginning of Halo 2, aside from a 4-year nap. It is unconfirmed at this time as to what his future holds, and I don't really want to include any speculation as to the plot of Halos 5 and 6, since I want this to be a factual biography, or at least as factual as you can get with a fictional character. So there you have it. John 117 is a veteran warrior, a hero of humanity and the saviour of all sentient life in our galaxy. His story is amazing, and so I hope you've enjoyed this video and maybe even learnt something that you didn't know already. I've been H2Acon, and I hope you'll join me next time for the next episode of Character Case Files.